Hello, everyone. My name is Tom Denford. I'm the CEO and co-founder of ID Comms. Welcome to another episode of Media Snack Meets, where we get to meet the individuals and organizations doing great work to inspire success and drive change in the global media and marketing industry. We get to learn what is behind that success, what it takes to make change in the industry, and maybe what the rest of us can learn from those experiences. Because the best are short on time, we do 6 questions in 20 minutes or less. My guest for this episode is Ron Amram, who's the Senior Director of Global Media at Mars. Hey, guys.
Hello, gentlemen.
Where are you? There you are.
Cheers.
Hey, Ron.
Hi, how are you, Tom?
I'm very good. Thanks for joining us. Really good to see you.
My pleasure. Thanks for doing this.
Good. Well, as you know, this is a fast-paced. We do 6 questions in 20 minutes or less. We'll go straight into question 1. So thank you for that. So, I gave people your name and your job title, but now you're at Mars. So what's the remit of your role? And whether at Mars or your previous role, people will know, obviously, you used to be head of media globally at Heineken as well, which you did for a long time. People will know you from that. Maybe share, something that you're most proud of in media that you've been involved in.
Yeah. Yes. What I'm most proud of really is my role is to build a center of excellence globally within Mars Rink, and specifically Mars Wrigley, as we have different business units. We call them segments. For Mars Wrigley is chocolate, candy, confections, and we have a pet nutrition, we have a food business, and we have media directors that sit across each business. And my job is to lead Mars Wrigley specifically, but also at a Mars Inc. level, build a center of excellence and drive our capability forward really 3 to 5 years into the future. What do we need from a media capability? How do we build a best practice? How do we elevate and drive greater effectiveness out of our media investment? And I think what I'm most proud of in my history is our ability to build more effective communications and raise the level of our advertising, knowing a bit more about how the consumer consumes and interacts with our content, right? And how it flows within the media they consume. And I think working with brand teams, elevating the work that they do, and our creative agencies, that's the real magic that we do. And that's what I enjoy the most. I think it's what I'm most proud of.
That's good. Well, and that leads perfectly to our second question, always, which is what the best things about working in media from your perspective? Yeah.
So I love numbers. I'm an analytical person. My mindset has always been, I was a biology major undergrad. I'm a science and math person. It's really where my energy gets triggered, because I love looking at information and turning it into ideas. So what I love about media is that it's still in marketing, and we combine left and right brain, and that's I think the magic about what we do. We sit next to really creative people, really forward-thinking brand builders, and try and connect that and amplify what they do to the right people and in the right places. And at the same time, it's a very creative aspect of a business, but it involves money, it involves science, it involves numbers, and turning that into value, right? And that to me is the fun part of what we do. Is really we can elevate big ideas, amplify big ideas, make them really drive change in business just by being that combination of insight and creativity.
Yeah. And as you know, I mean, we've spoken over the years around these kind of themes, but that idea of media really being seen as a function of growth is kind of, it feels like a relatively new phenomenon. It feels like that's only in the more recent years that maybe media directors like yourself, and we get to speak to you and many of your peers across lots of different businesses, really been talking about media driving growth, or being given permission within their organizations for media to be seen as a growth driver. Has that been your experience through businesses?
I think what we've had to do is fight to prove it again. I mean, we all life used to be easier. Look, media as a capability, as a practice, the role of media people within an organization has been elevated and become more important because the media landscape and media consumption has drastically changed, continues to change at a much more rapid pace than it did, say, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, for sure. And back then, television was much more predictable. Traditional media was much more predictable. And the ROIs were much more bankable, predictable. So you didn't need a media capability to be so robust. You didn't need a team. You had a media person. You didn't need, buying teams. Everything is much simpler. And as things got more complex, I think media and advertising has gotten harder. And that's, where maybe media is not working as hard for us, and advertising is not as effective for us as it has been in the past. So there's now pressure from a senior leadership perspective, from a finance perspective, to prove it, track it, where maybe we're not as bankable in terms of our impact as we have been in the past. It's very clear that if you look at TV ROIs, say 20 years ago versus today, they're in decline. So even the banking, the ability to drive impact from our traditional media is in decline. In digital, you have to kind of work harder to get that same level of effectiveness.
Yeah.
And it's much more variable. You can get a 0 ROI if you're not paying attention.
Yeah.
You're aggregating one-to-one impressions and not at scale. So it's a harder game. It's a harder impact to gain. And it's overall, I think we have to prove it a bit more than we used to, and we have to learn and accelerate faster. It's more complicated and more complex.
Yeah. Interesting. And that's often what we hear media directors say, is that the job has just changed so much. And now we talk about this a lot on Media Snack on the show, as you're probably aware, just the changing role of the media director, having to spread across all these different adjacent functions and trying to be the expert in everything. Meanwhile, more scrutiny and accountability than ever. It's an adrenaline job. It's a tough one.
It's not a 9-to-5 job, right? But that's why we like it. Right?
That's why we love it.
Yeah.
But you leaded me perfectly into the next question. So let's look at the industry. Those are some of the challenges of the role. From your perspective, in media, we love talking about all the change and the challenges that are ahead. But what are the things that in your role that you kind of really focus on and try and get your organization thinking about?
Yeah. So internally, I think for us, it's measurement, right? It's how do we iterate at speed, with the right compass, right? So how do we make sure that we're not, and as a company, we are very focused on revenue impact, right? So are we growing our brands and our business? We're not chasing, say, perception data or so panel-based research and things like that. So real business performance is how is Mars's culture. By the way, it was at Heineken as well, right? So at the end of the day, those are hard things to do as a CPG FMCG company. So I think measurement is a critical one for us. But I think I think that's the Mars perspective and the big focus for us. I think the one that's sitting out there, if you're going to ask me as an industry, what has everyone scratching their heads, I think it's the privacy, demise of the cookie, and the shifting landscape of digital. There are key infrastructure elements that we've used in the past, and they're now disappearing. How does that change how we really do data-driven marketing in a world where, and this is not a new question, and there's lots of different tectonic shifts in the industry that have been going on now for some time, and we're still going to get more of them, I feel like. So, but this is one that is still playing out, and there are several initiatives underway, and I think everyone's angling towards possible, hedging their bets and going down multiple routes. But I think that's enough. I mean, those are internally for us, it is about measurement, but it is also about unlocking data-driven marketing and personalization. Those are probably the two.
Good, very good. Thank you for sharing this. Leadership advice. So what's good in leadership advice? Either think something that you've learned over the years or somebody said to you, or something that you frequently use working with your teams or your partners.
Yeah, I think that for us right now at Mars, it's progress over perfection, right? So you have to learn and iterate at speed. And I think there's lots of tag words that some industry people use, like 10% done, and knowing the fact that you're never complete, but the job is never complete, and you will never be perfect. And that's part of the question that we have is how do we measure and effectively use search? How do we balance organic versus paid? What's the right model? Well, you're never going to get that model right. So make a hypothesis and go. Fail, move forward, learn, and do it again and again and again. And that's the notion that we're trying to build within an organization is if you're learning, if you're measuring, if you're improving, that's progress.
Yeah.
And it's better than not doing anything at all, because the truth is in this landscape, you can't hire a consultant to give you a best practice. They can only point you in the right direction, and then the stumbling starts. You crawl, you walk, you run, but you can't run until you start crawling. So for us, it's progress over perfection is the real leadership advice is, try, learn, measure. And even if you have a gut instinct that you're really excited about, be prepared. It may not work, but that's okay. And you go from there. So improve and hedge your bet. Go.
Good. Like that. I think I saw a couple of weeks ago the marketunist Tom Fishburne.
Yeah.
Who was presenting at who's awesome, and many viewers will know his work. He was presenting as part of a WFA, World Federation of Advertisers kind of session, and I think he used that phrase as well, or he's incorporated it into some of his work. Progress over perfection. I remember him saying that as well. So I think maybe that's a new kind of strong
tagline for the industry. Maybe I
like that.
Well, I have to find, if he does a cartoon about it, I'm gonna have to use it, I think. But I think it does really work, because there's a lot of within companies, a lot of people scratching their heads and trying to solve problems. I'm like, well, just let's create a test.
It's good, very good. So as you mentioned earlier, being a global media director is not a regular 9-to-5 job, but outside, if you do find some space, I know that you have 3 kids that keep you looking young,
or the opposite of that, yeah.
But the same here. And but what would we find you? What would we find you doing outside of media? What do you do to kind of go and reflect and recharge away from the industry?
It's weird. During the past year, what would be a recharge, I guess, 2 years ago is different than, I guess, the past year. So, but it's weird, lately what we've been doing is we got a fire pit, and we've been, we have, I live in New York City, right? So in Forest Hills in New York City, we have a house, and we have a, kind of a block, and we do a lot of gathering of friends outside, right? And try and be safe and smart about this. But these days, I think finding ways to connect with people and decompress is, I think, we miss the comfort of the people around us, right? We've all spent a lot more time with our family than we used to, and that's, I think, one of the blessings that we've gotten over the past year. But we love to travel. I love sports, and I get my energy from my children. So, to your point, so I should count my blessings.
Good, like that. So let's look ahead. So, 12 months from now, I know it's been a weird year. 12 months back, and who knows ahead. But in the context of some of these big dynamic shifts in the industry and changing relationships between different parties in the in the kind of ecosystem of media, where do you hope that we can get to, and what are your hopes for the year ahead?
Yeah, I think it's been a strange year. I think a lot of progress has been halted because so much has been spinning in terms of just understanding how to move forward in a pandemic where in a a recession. So that's really hijacked the evolution, I think, of many media strategies and capabilities and discussions. I think in the next year from now, our goal, our hope, is that we have some best practices in place where we have strong, independent third parties that can act to strengthen and bring buyers and sellers together in the digital space. I think that's where a new definition for data-driven marketing needs to be found, right? And I think we have strong players on the sell side. We have strong interest on the buy side. Can we find a way to really unlock privacy and personalization in one industry? And I think that's there's a lot to be hopeful for. And I think over the next 6 to 12 months, we can expect tangible progress. That's what my hope is.
Good. I love that. Ron Amram, Senior Director, Global Media at Mars. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Tom.
Who would you like to meet on future episodes? Please let us know in the comments below. Subscribe to our channel, where you will also find previous guests, including leading media executives from companies like P&G, L'Oreal, Mars, MasterCard, and many more. Plus some of the industry's most provocative thought leaders, such as Belinda Smith, Jerry Dakin, Professor Mark Ritson, Nadine Karp-McHugh, and Gary Vaynerchuk. You can also subscribe to get new episodes each week, and if you like this episode and think someone else would, then please do share it. Thanks so much for watching.